Never sat on this bench before. It was occurring to me as I was walking up this hill that the great burden of our time to slough off and release is the burden that has been imposed by belief systems believed in. Not even ones outside ourselves, but ones we made up. And we all had a series of experiences throughout our lives, beginning as young children, where we began to make meaning out of what we were observing. And a lot of that meaning was unconscious. It just became how we felt in ourselves as we went through the world, and it became a strategy without our knowing it. And then we kept the strategy because we didn't know, and kept it in place well into our adulthood, and maybe constructed entire lifetimes based on the strategy. And we live in a world where so much of our strategy-driven behavior is rewarded materially by apparent comforts that come from outside of ourselves. So money can buy a lot now in terms of external accessories that prop up our external sense of perceived comfort. And we can have all this stuff and still not have ever touched a place of true comfort inside us. And we still may have never touched what our true creative power is to make a world from our place of inner security, rather than making a world based on fear of and escaping from something that we avoid by propping it up with the externals. So we've created these equations where we've made the external equal some feeling. So when we see the external, we assume the feeling is there without actually touching the feeling or checking in with the feeling or having the feeling, because we stopped feeling in order to focus on the external and to run by a strategy that's in the mental realm. And it's a burden. It keeps us in a continuous cycle of busyness and activity and fear of stillness and wanting more ideas, strategies, concepts, things to apply as a framework for this external world, all so that we just don't have to feel what we've avoided feeling since we made up the story back when we were 2 or 3 years old. And we've just locked it away. We've made it so untouchable. We've condemned it to the extent that if anyone were to question our story of condemnation, we would attack them immediately. So if you notice this with people who have certain diagnoses or have just really, quote, come to terms with the way they are, as they were assigned a label at some point that made them feel good enough to get through, and then if someone comes along and says, hey, do you really have to live like that anymore? Or hey, what about this other way? What would it be like to not have that and to actually move forward in a new way? The first reaction is many times very violently opposed to it, or a lashing out, a fight or flight kind of response, because that identity, that label, that diagnosis, that way of being in the world has become a protective armor of perceived comfort. And it's a box. We all have a box. We're all living in a box day to day. And the point is not to think we can ever get rid of the box, but to see it. To see it and touch it. And that takes courage, just to do that. To see the box that you're in and to touch the box. And to feel what that box has kept you from feeling to this point. Just that step is very courageous and very transformative and powerful, because once you can touch the fact that you have a box, you've already, in a sense, moved beyond it, because you become conscious of that level of unconsciousness. So the burden that I see that we're being asked to release is the burden of having to stay so attached to the belief system that we actually push away any feelings that don't fit into that explainable framework or system. So our feelings of wow and inspiration and awe and that inexplicable feeling of speechlessness that we get when we feel something viscerally, that really has no linearity, no framework, no rationality to it, and can only be called mystery. And we have assigned all different kinds of names to it: weird, occult, woo-woo, spiritual, and these all have their own connotations in our mind. Some of us embrace those words, and others of us are very stigmatized by them. And we judge those words as over there. It's a way for us to distance ourselves from, again, our own feeling that might be experienced if we touched it. And that's a burden, to have to keep things at arm's length that are actually at the core of how we all operate, and how the natural world, the universe, the cosmos is operating, and even how science is revealing that things work, all points to this central mystery and intangible feeling quality that's beyond our words, beyond our ability to fully explain it, even with the most complicated mathematical formulas. But we can feel it, we can sense it. We all have had even a flash, a moment of being able to perceive this, and we've filed it away thanks to the support of our belief system to say, oh, put that in the drawer, put that in the box, put it away in the closet, kick it under the bed, don't look at it, because that's not what's real. It's over here, believe me, believe me. And the belief system reboots like an operating system on a computer. It comes back online, demanding that you operate within it. So every time, here's the courageous journey. Every time we choose to trust our feeling, our heart, intuition, guidance, all these different words, our inner, not another belief system, because there's a lot of, quote, guidance systems that are actually just asking you to believe in something else that's a little more spiritual maybe, but it's still something outside yourself. I'm talking about when you hear something and feel something in you, it's undeniable and imperceptible to anyone outside of yourself because it comes from within you. You're choosing faith, and you're choosing your divine presence, what's coming through you, only for you and as you, that only you can do. That's a profound act of courage, and it's a profound threat to the belief system. So expect the belief system, the one you've been operating in, the box you've been living in, to protest and to try to reboot itself and to demand your attention and to survive by you believing in it. And just know that that is its own mechanism of survival. It's not who you are. It's what you chose to interact with and to come into conversation with, to grow into the full expression of your divine presence, which is speaking to you from that place that only you can hear. So going through that building of strength and the walking through the feelings of fear and not serving fear by allowing it to control you, but learning to be accustomed to the feeling of fear and taking small, doable actions in the presence of fear, building strength, being supported in your body by nature, by whatever community of support is required, is how we grow and become the divine expressions that we already are, but that we mask through the weight and the burden of these belief systems. And just imagine the analogy of the extra weight you're carrying around in the form of belief systems and how it manifests in your life. What are the burdens in your life? How are those the belief systems that are keeping you in a box? And how can your inner guidance, the quiet voice inside you, the wisdom voice, the heart desire, the love, come through you and guide you to take a scary step on your own behalf, on behalf of your true presence, the one who has no thoughts of judgment and who has no need to prove or earn or try, the isness of who you are, who you am. Can you act from that place? What does it look like? How specific can you get? And know that every time you do that, you're building strength on behalf of your true identity and building the capacity to allow an old belief system to extinguish itself and to become less and less and less functioning in your life as the control strategy. And it does require imagination, because the belief system is attached to the visible world, the proof, the evidence, and what's concrete and showing, has something to show for itself before you need to act. So it really doesn't understand faith, doesn't understand the invisible, it only understands visible. So something that's been done before by someone else that you can compare it to, or something you've done before that you can compare it to. And anything else is going to be criticized, judged, shot down, or proved not to be valid through the use of these concrete, visible evidence mechanisms. And this to me is not it's not incompatible with science. I was thinking about this earlier, and I was imagining that in the beginning days of scientific investigation, scientists were dreamers and imagined things and set up experiments to see if what they imagine in their invisible world could be brought into visibility through a certain methodology. And it was a way to give a voice to the direct observer. There was no idea of something external that was a divine law that spoke truth outside of human comprehension. It was an integration of the human observation, the human perspective, and this world that had all up until that point been completely deemed mysterious and outside of ourselves. So I'm referring not to the dichotomy of science and religion that was so prevalent for so long in history, but remembering that we as humans have always had an inkling that our perspective, like what's behind our eyes, is valid, and that that's our being, is what is behind our eyes, what is observing our world is our essence. And since it's a silent experience that we cannot easily share with others, it's easier to externalize it. So God was externalized as some humanized figure, or, in other mythologies, animal figures or other types of gods and goddesses that had superhuman features. These were ways of describing the inner consciousness and its unfathomable reaches, and a way of relating it to others. And if I look at my observation of our human expressions through art and music and dance and science and literature, these are all attempts to externalize and share with others this inner experience that we're all having in our own way. And where I see the movement right now with consciousness for me, it's reintegrating this sense of awe that I always feel when I'm in nature, when I stand as a tiny little thimble in a forest of trees that stretches far up into the sky. And then I look at the sky itself and look at the stars within the sky. I feel something I cannot explain or express, and yet because I'm human, I long to connect my internal experience with this external observation. And that's the realm of creativity, and that's the realm of where our intention becomes expression, whatever that is, an action, a word, a thought, and then all the steps that go into constructing our worlds. And this consciousness, I'm always inspired. I think the reason I make these videos so easily on these hikes is it's just things come to me so effortlessly, so easily when I'm under the sun and in the sky and among the trees and in the stillness of this all. And when I train in these environments to come back to the center of my being, when I finally sit down in front of the machines that we use to make things, computers and phones and things, I can tap into that more easily than if I'm in a world of machines all the time, or if I'm in a world of constant chattering from the belief system trying to prove itself, keep itself booted up and not allow the spaciousness of this to come in and be received. It's much more difficult for me in that world of constant activity and chatter to touch what's already there, very quiet, in the center. And within every living thing and particle wave. So, people describe nature and the beach and hiking as experiences of being more relaxed and free and open and spacious. And to me, that's the description of letting go of the burdens of the belief systems that keep us in the box on our daily basis, in our daily lives, the strategies that keep us running from appointment to appointment, believing we need to make all this money and buy all these things in order to blah, 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 rather than coming from the relaxed, open spaciousness, desire to share, desire to offer, desire to connect, desire to reach out, to express compassion. These are the basis for a lot of activities in the world that generate value. And we're coming at it from the outside, through branding and products, and we're trying to touch these experiences through purchases. And I hope people are touching that. The advertising is very convincing, and yet from what I know, my own experience, there's nothing that's made out of plastic that could ever touch in the same way that another human being having an experience who's touched the place in themselves with love and offers it from that place of being love can touch another person and awaken them to who they are. It's like the image of a fairy godmother with a wand who just touches someone on the shoulder, and that's it. It's that subtle. It's not some kind of intertwined entanglement and passionate relationship that we paint the picture of. It's a very light touch when everything changes. And it's awakening, and the gratitude is just, it's not expressible in words, and yet we desire to have it flow through words, and we feel it. And all we want to do is to continue to feel and remember that. And the best way I'm finding is to share from the place of gratitude, to hear and receive others' stories of suffering or stories of being stuck or stories of awakening, and to meet it from the place of being love, offering love, and being the vehicle to pass on the gratitude. So that's it from this new bench today.